I'm Nate Chin, the UX strategist at Theory, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about design sprints. In this video, we're going to talk about the purpose of a design sprint, the history of design sprints, and how to conduct a virtual design sprint. The purpose of a design sprint is to test big, ambitious goals prior to spending time and money developing them. This way, you can avoid costly mistakes or, hopefully, prove they're worth the investment. This is not the first time in history the purpose of a design sprint has been conjured up. No. In fact, in 4th century BC, Aristotle coined the notion, fake it till you make it. And in 18th century Austria, a Hungarian inventor named Wolfgang Kempelen introduced the first computer ever to the Queen of Austria. It looked like a chess-playing robot, dressed as a Turkish man. Little did everyone know, until a fire unveiled the secret a century later, that famous chess players from around the world took turns inside the Mechanical Turk. How could we get famous players from around the world? Today, we can source great talent from around the world to play our game in a virtual design sprint. Using tools like Real-Time Board and Zoom, we can collaborate remotely, unlike any time in history. A contemporary example of using a design sprint in recent history is in the case study of Slack. Slack became the fastest company in history to reach a $2 billion valuation. How did they do it? They did it by using Google Ventures Design Sprint by Jake Knapp. And now we're going to cover exactly what goes into your virtual design sprint. Remote work still may be new to some of you. New change is often uncomfortable. Yet none of us want to be seen as the old man yelling at trains. As Marshall Goldsmith says in the title of his book, "What got you here won't get you there." So it's important we embrace the uncomfortable to effect real innovation. And that's why we're going to take time now to cover the new rules of remote etiquette. Rule number 1, have great Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is often the barrier of entry to a good remote work environment. Rule number 2, restart your computer fresh. Rule number 3, only ever have one tab in a browser at a time. Rule number 4, use Zoom's robust video conferencing software. Number 5, use Real-Time Board's virtual whiteboard as a shared brain throughout this design sprint. Rule number 6, mute your microphone unless it's your turn to speak. Rule number 7, no group settings per one camera lens. This is because it makes the other remote workers feel left out from the camaraderie and the gossip and the chatter that occurs when there's person-to-person chemistry inside one room. Rule number 9, be on time and silent all your notifications. Rule number 10, have good lighting. And oftentimes this means you need to move where the sunlight from a window shines on your face. So that wraps it up for our 10 commandments on remote etiquette. Next, let's talk about what goes into each day of our design sprint. Discovery Day, Monday. At 10 a.m., we'll introduce members of the team that are just meeting for the first time, and we will explain the design sprint process. Next, we will set a long-term goal or vision. We'll turn around and describe how might we fail at achieving this mission or goal. And then we'll transform those pessimistic ideas into questions that we can answer this week. At 11:30 a.m., we'll make a map from key players on the left through a user flow to achieving our goal on the right. Then at 1 p.m., we'll take a lunch break. At 2 p.m., we'll come back and we'll invite experts remotely from around the world to review our map and help us come up with ideas of how might we overcome those obstacles that we described in our questions. At 4 p.m., we're going to organize our notes and vote on which question we're going to answer, which key player that we're going to select for this week, and what moment in the user flow are we going to prototype. And that wraps up our Monday discovery session. Tuesday is Sketch Day. And on Sketch Day, we begin at 10 a.m. by conducting lightning round demos. And this is where each person on the team takes 3 minutes to demonstrate a user experience, whether online or a native app that they really like. It can be a competitor, a benchmark, and even our own website. At 12:30, we'll break into teams to cover more ground or swarm one particular part together. Now, at 1 p.m., we'll take a lunch break. And we'll come back at 2 p.m. and quietly take notes on our own pieces of paper. At 2:20, we'll jot down some ideas. And then at 2:40, we'll conduct an exercise called Crazy Eights, which is designed for us to take 1-minute napkin sketches for 8 minutes. Then at 2:50, we will focus on one of those 8 in a final solution sketch triptych. Finally, at 4:30 p.m., we'll hand in our final solution sketches. And that wraps up our Tuesday sketch session. This is also the day when we will begin to prospect for our user testers. Wednesday is decision day. And at 10 a.m., we are going to quietly observe the art gallery on our virtual whiteboard. We're going to conduct a heat map session at 10:20 a.m. where we each get stickers that we place on certain elements and certain solution sketches that we like. And we also have an opportunity to do post-it notes on the real-time virtual whiteboard if we have any questions regarding any user interface elements or any words on the solution sketches. At 10:40 a.m., we're going to do this speed critique, where we take 3 minutes to critique and talk about each solution sketch individually. The person that designed these are intended to be anonymous. That way there's no bias, nobody at fear of hurting someone's feelings. And we wait until the end of the critique for that person to speak up and say, hey, you guys got it wrong this way, or what I really intended was that. At 11 a.m., we're going to talk about the straw poll. This is where each person gets 3 stickers to go around and select their final decision. And by now, you have this heat map for the decider to come in at 11:20 a.m. and give the final 3 blue ribbons for this super vote. At 11:30 a.m., we will divide the winners from the maybes. At 11:40 a.m., we're going to decide whether we do a multivariate test amongst the 3 winners or if we synthesize into one prototype. Finally, at 12 p.m., if we have decided to multivariate test, we'll come up with alternative fake brand names, sourced maybe from Instagram or some logo inspiration website. Then at 12:20 p.m., we're going to make notes and vote on which we'll prototype. Now that's in the event that we do multivariate testing. If we decided to synthesize into one prototype, we may just pick a brand name and then the voting's done. We'll take a 1 p.m. lunch break. At 2 p.m., we'll come back and we'll do a storyboard grid on our virtual whiteboard with 15 squares. And at 2:20 p.m., we'll choose an opening scene for our user testers. At 3 p.m., we'll put and organize the sketches that we've done inside the grid in order of the user flow. Thursday is prototyping day. And at 10 a.m., we're going to get together and pick what tools we're going to use. Now, this is no time for ordinary tools that you're used to, like Photoshop, Illustrator, real code like CSS and HTML. We don't have time for that in one day. So I'm talking about tools like Keynote, PowerPoint, Google Slides, and things that help us really expedite this process. So we'll decide on what tools to use at 10 a.m. Thursday morning. Then at 10:20 a.m., we're going to divide and conquer, which means that we're going to split up and we'll have a team member collect assets from current brand guidelines. We'll have a team member write copy for all of the different screens. We'll have a team member write the interview script for the user test sessions the next day. We'll have a couple of team members devoted completely to prototyping. And then at 10:40 a.m., we'll commence the prototyping. Now, we'll take a lunch break at 1 p.m. again. When we come back from lunch, at 2 p.m., we're going to prototype again, but this time we're going to actually have the person in charge of stitching things together begin to make it cohesive and coherent, because needless to say, each person prototyping will have a different size button and a different proximity for elements on the page. And we just need that stitcher to come in and make sure everything is cohesive. Then finally at 3 p.m., we'll invite the decider to come and do a final trial run before we test on Friday. And then at 4 p.m., we'll do any finishing touches that need to be done prior to our test on Friday. So welcome to Friday, User Test Day, the big finale of a design sprint. And at 8 a.m., we are going to set up the live stream video conferencing software in order for the team to observe the user test session in real time. Next, we'll set up a 5-column grid in our virtual whiteboard. Each column will be the name of a user tester. From 9 a.m. until lunch, we will do our first round of user test sessions. Then we'll take a lunch. After lunch, we'll do a couple more interviews. By 3:30 p.m., we will put the notes that we've been quietly taking amongst ourselves. We'll put those notes as post-its on our virtual whiteboard in the corresponding column. Finally, we will, at 3:50 p.m., identify common patterns and themes that we see amongst the 5 user testers. We will review our long-term goal, questions, compare patterns, and write down how to follow up. So that wraps up this video on virtual design sprints. We covered the purpose of a design sprint, testing big, far-out ideas versus small, low-hanging fruit. We talked about the history of fake it till you make it, and we talked about the new era of remote work being ushered in order to bring together the most brilliant minds to effect real innovation in our virtual design sprint. And so with that, just want to say thank you.